Hey everybody, this is Daniel Carson. Welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Morris, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting all of you to check us out at normalentertainment.com, where you can get all the information on the shows. There's a show out there for you guys. Go check it out. Inviting you also to find me on Facebook, Put It Together Podcast. You can find all this information on my guest. You can get the musical intros that I used to put on there. Soon we're coming out with our own Put It Together song, so be on the lookout for that. I want to start this week right away because I feel like we're going to have a lot to talk about. My guest is Alex Hollander. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
I met Alex because he works for some really good friends of mine, and Ryan has been on my show before. He's been on the show actually twice. So for those of you, go check out Ryan. How does he pronounce his last name?
Butch.
Butch.
Ryan Butch.
I always want to say Botch, but it's not Botch, it's Butch.
You know, I've been doing that forever.
Yeah. So get used to it. We're going to change his name.
Yeah.
So for those of you that remember Ryan Butch, we did a show with him about 6 years ago. He was my seventh guest or eighth guest, something like that.
That's
and
cool.
Then we came back and did like 170 something with him.
Yeah.
So 5 years later, update on Ryan. So
Lots
check it
changed.
out. I'll put this information out there, and he's also the owner of
Kingdom Entities
Thank you.
and Illuminant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you guys have seen those out there. I'll post that out there too, so you guys can check it out. So anyway, I saw Alex popped up and under your business account, which is Alex Illuminant, and I was like, wait a minute. Why is this guy using that name? I know that name. And when I clicked on you, it was like, oh, mutual friends. I was like, okay. So I said hi, and I probably scared him a little. I was like, why is this guy? Who is this little Mexican, and what does he want with me? But thank you for responding. I'm glad you responded.
Yeah, of course.
Did it throw you off that some random dude?
Well, you know, it was interesting because when I added you because I had seen that we had some mutual friends, Brian and Allison, and then it was maybe a few minutes after I had clicked the accept ad, you posted just hello on my newsfeed, and it kind of threw me off a little bit because usually people don't kind of like start the conversation like that, and it was new for me, and so I was kind of worried, like, oh, did I add like the wrong person? Do Allison and Ryan even know this guy? And and I walked into Allison's office and I said, Daniel Garza, do you know him? And she said, oh yeah, he's a great friend of mine. He's awesome. You should start a conversation with him. So I did, and you know, the rest is history from there. It was cool that, you know, you were very just forward with me immediately. Like,
aggressive,
hey,
let's say
you're
aggressive.
very aggressive.
I'm aggressive.
Yes. And I like that. I like the motivation from you, and was like, hey, I'm going to come to the office and come meet you like next week. And I said, okay, great, let's do it. I mean, you know, I always try to keep myself open to meeting new people and to having new opportunities in my life because I can't lose anything from that.
Well,
you know,
most people that I've connected with on Facebook, if you've connected with me probably in the last year or so after my cancer ordeal, that's my style. It's like, hey, if we connect with somebody and they say yes, or if somebody requests my friendship, my first thing is like, hello, like, hi. Like, there's a reason why we're connecting.
Exactly.
Like, I have no nude pictures on there, so I know it's not my body you're after. So, and then for the people who are watching or listening that have been on my show, that's how the conversation started with them.
It's always,
And
well,
go ahead.
I just think it's interesting too because I think in this day and age with Facebook, a lot of people, you know, you get these ads all the time and you add this person on Facebook and then nothing comes of it. Nobody says hi to each other. It's just like, okay, now we're friends and I get to start seeing your stuff on my feed now. But nobody like opens a dialogue ever. And so that's why I thought it was so interesting, and it kind of threw me off at first because I'm so conditioned at this point to just adding people on Facebook and then we never really connect in that kind of way.
Especially if you have a fan page or a business page,
Yeah.
or it's your work page,
Mm-hmm.
people just get added on because it's part of work.
Yeah.
But one thing that, and it caught my attention, I heard somebody say people just collect friends on Facebook like they're trading cards. You just buy them, and eventually maybe they'll be worth something.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even have 5,000 friends on there.
Yeah.
But everybody that I've added, like if I request you, there's a reason. I'm going to be honest with people. I stalk you sometimes.
Yeah.
I am a stalker.
Yeah.
I'll find somebody's name and I'm like, my intuition, and Alex and I had already set down with my cards. My intuition, looking at a picture, would be like, this person looks interesting. There's something about them. So I'll go to their page and I'll start, if they have stuff on there, I'll start trying. I'm like, oh wow, they do X job.
Yeah.
I've never had that person on my show.
Yeah.
Now I want this person on my show.
Exactly.
So anyway, so that's how Alex came to the show, and he's right. We just met on today we're recording on a Friday.
Yeah.
I met you Wednesday.
Yeah. And
mostly because Allison's kid was selling Girl Scout cookies, and I came to get my cookies.
We were united through the cookies.
The cookies.
Yeah.
Thank you, Girl Scouts of America.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we were united by little girls because that would be weird. That would be weird.
That would be
so
weird.
we're not going to say that.
We're going to take it in that direction. No.
No. We were united by cookies.
Yes.
Which doesn't sound any better.
I mean, who doesn't love cookies, though? Come on. Yeah,
we sat on the floor and pigged out. No, we did not pig out of cookies.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Alex, so after all this, tell us how you put it together.
Well, it's interesting. So, kind of when we were talking before this and you kind of brought up to me, like, how this all works, it threw my mind into this, like, frenzy of, like, whoa, like, where do I start? Because I have such a long story. And I think kind of the first thing that I want to say is that, like, I've always been a distracted kid. And, like, when I was young, I used to get in trouble a lot in school because I would always I'm a real creative guy, so I was always drawing in class and, like, really never doing my classwork. And I was always getting in trouble for that. So the result of that was at 6 or 7 years old, maybe, I got put on medication. And, when I look back at it, it was kind of the first time in my life where somebody said, you have a problem, let's throw drugs at it. And
that's interesting. Before you continue, I've always wanted to ask somebody that was on medication when they were kids, did you think you had a problem?
No.
I mean, I know it's hard to, like, put that kind of question on a 6-year-old thought, but did you think, like, I'm like a mess?
Well, no. And I think that we get this kind of feeling, like, when you get in trouble a lot as a kid, I think sometimes, well, at least for me, like, I don't want to pontificate and speak for other people, but I know for me, I was kind of feeling like, well, I'm getting in trouble all the time. That must mean that I'm bad, right? And it wasn't until later that I actually realized that was just who I was. And it didn't mean I was doing anything wrong. I was just kind of acting out on what my, like, core feelings were. Like, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to express it. And because it wasn't the norm, or because it wasn't in line with what the teachers and the school wanted me to be doing, they put this label on me as, he's a problem kid.
Well, for other people listening, or for parents that might be listening,
yeah,
and they have a kid who's a little hyper, a little creative,
yeah,
what kind of things were you doing that people thought, that's not normal kid?
Well, I mean, I had a hard time, like, I had a hard time paying attention a lot in class. Like I said, I was kind of always drawing and doing my own thing. And then I had this very sensitive side to me where if somebody didn't include me in something or I didn't feel like a part of, I acted out on it. And I got really aggressive and sometimes violent, and just kind of in this way of, like, I really felt like I just wanted to be a part of. And when I wasn't included in something, I would act out.
So you go from hyper creative. Were you the kind of kid who like dismantled a phone or
Oh,
an
yeah.
alarm clock?
Yeah,
And then try to figure out how to put it back? And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was the opposite. I was always like,
Yeah.
it looks pretty, don't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was always curious. Like, one of my favorite shows as a kid was that I would love to watch How It's Made. You know, and that kind of stuff just fascinated me. And I remember one of my earliest aspirations being like I wanted to be an inventor.
Huh.
And I was just always so just blown away by like how things worked and how the world worked and how people got these ideas, right? And it always wanted to create something. I always wanted to be a creator instead of a consumer.
Got it. So what happens to your personality once you're on meds?
I mean, it was absolutely, it just put me at this baseline that I couldn't go up or down. I was just very flat. And I remember being really depressed about it and feeling like I had this fundamental change within me and I was never going to be the same again.
Wow.
And
you had that you had that insight as a kid. That's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and I was in like a lot of therapy when I was younger too. And I had a lot of professionals tell me, like, you're so insightful, you have so much potential. And that just even made me more depressed. Because it was like, cool, I know all these things about me, but what do I do?
Wow.
You know, what do I do about it? Like, how do I fix it? Or where's my life going to go? Because if I'm going to stay in this lane of this just bland, like I can't go up or down or around, like what's the point?
That's like teaching a kid to draw on a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
And just let their imagination go wild.
Yeah.
And then the next day you're giving them fully colored books.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Exactly.
Like, so what am I supposed to do with this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
How long were you on meds?
I want to say probably from the time I was 7 until maybe 12 or 13.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a solid 5 or 6 years. And the meds changed. You know, it wasn't the same medication. They kind of experimented with a lot of different stuff. And it was interesting. In that time period, my parents got divorced.
Oh.
Like right around the time when I was 10. And before that, they were always kind of arguing about what they wanted to do, if they wanted to keep me on the medication. My mom was very pro just me being me. And my dad was more of the kind of guy where it's like, well, if we don't do something about the way he's acting, he's never going to go anywhere in life, or he's never going to accomplish anything. So I always had that kind of pressure from my dad of like, we're doing this to help you, and we're doing this to kind of build you into a man that's going to be successful. And my dad was a very successful man, so when you hear things like that from a successful person, you think, well, I guess they know what they're talking about, you know? And so it was a very conflicting time where my mom was kind of the more of like a free, just let him do it, like let him be himself. And my dad was like the polar opposite.
Wow, that's... Having that much attention on you, because here you have two people arguing over who you should be.
Mm-hmm.
You would think, wow, I'm a lucky kid.
Yeah.
Did it feel lucky?
No. I mean, it felt... See, here's the other thing. I'm an only child, too.
Oh, wow.
I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
I'm an only child.
As we look at him with, like, whatever, dude.
And I don't, you know, I don't say that to, you know, I only say that because it really was, it was all the attention was on me, and I didn't always want it to be. And you know, a lot of people told me, like, so here's the thing about the kind of lucky kid thing, right? Is a lot of people always told me that I was lucky and that I should be grateful for, like, having my parents be so involved in my life. And I am grateful that I had parents that cared enough to even fight about whether I should be on
Right.
medication or not, because some parents just don't care. And so kind of what happened for me around that age too was I saw friends of mine whose parents were absolutely just not involved at all and kind of just let them do whatever they wanted, and I was jealous of those kids because I felt kind of like, okay, like they get to just be who they are and they don't have anybody kind of really telling them like be this way or be that way.
Do you think that this is actually a case of grass is greener?
I don't know. Maybe. That's a hard question. I think that when I look back on it now, that I'm grateful that I definitely am grateful that I had the attention that I did
right.
when I was a kid. Because and I'd like to say this right now too, is I love my parents and I'm super grateful to have them in my life, and they're still very involved in my life today. And you know, I don't like to put it out there that I am angry with my parents.
No, yeah. So let's say that they're still alive, I'm guessing.
Yes, they're still alive.
Mom and Dad, we're not dogging on you.
Yeah.
We're just trying to showcase. Obviously, you can't change the past.
Yeah.
But you can reflect on it and decide where you're going to go from that. And
exactly.
From what I've known you and the 2 visits that we have now, you don't seem like an angry person. You don't seem resentful.
No.
But there are parents, and just to put it out there to parents, we will always be resentful of something. There's something that a parent didn't let us do.
Yeah.
Because I still remember that concert that I wanted to go when I was like 14, and my mom said no. I still remember, and I won't say what because it would make me look foolish, but it was a very good concert. I didn't get to go, and I didn't get to dye my hair when I was a kid either. But no, I think, and to other parents listening, this is not a I hate my parents conversation. This is the choices that they made for me. That looking back on them, I kind of like,
yeah.
Was that looking back on it based on what you know today? Was it the best choice? But it was the best choice they knew how to make then. Exactly.
And I think it's really important for me to understand that, and I understood that more as I got older, was that like they just did the best that they could with what they had. And I can't be mad at that. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where I can't even really have an opinion on it fully yet because I'm not a parent.
Right.
You know? And so I don't even know what that feels like yet.
Yeah.
I'm still young. I'm still like in the stage of I'm not. I can't even understand the scope of what it means to be a parent yet.
Yeah, to have the responsibility of a child, of a little person in your hands, and knowing that every decision that you make, every word you say, because we know it now, it's gonna leave a print.
Yep.
And I'll say this story about my parents real quickly. When I knew that I was gay very young, I was probably about 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
And I knew it, and I knew my dad knew it.
Yeah.
Although I didn't come out till I was 17. I always thought my dad hated me because of who I was.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I grew up and went to therapy that I kind of turned it around and realized, no, my dad hated the fact that he knew what society did to gay people. He didn't hate me. He hated what other people could do to me and what that would do to me.
Yeah.
So he tried to stop me from getting hurt, not from being myself.
Yeah.
And then I'm where you are, like, oh, they just did the best that they can with the information they had.
Yeah.
They were not educated. They only did like grade school.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. And then I was able to step back from that anger place and that resentment place.
Yeah.
Which is heavy.
It's heavy, and I think when you get to the point where you can step away, like you said, from the anger and the resentment, that's not only freeing, but it puts you in this perspective of kind of like, wow, I feel kind of bad for, you know what I mean, for feeling that way for
I'm sorry
so
I
long.
said I hated you.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, and it's, man, it just, this whole process of growing up and realizing who we are and how we feel about the world and our parents and everybody that we interact with is this huge process of not only like existentialism and what we're going to do with our lives, but really understanding who we want in our lives and valuing them as much as we possibly can.
Yeah. And then after that, we kind of just, it's not until you get a little older that you start to realize, regardless of the way that they taught you the lesson, it's how you interpret it. And once you know that, you start making decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get out of the childhood a little bit, because
yeah.
I want to get a letter from your mom or your dad. How dare you turn our child against us? No, Mom and Dad, I'm not turning him against you. I found him that way. So you grow up, you're off the meds.
Yeah.
You're a teenager now.
Yeah.
Because you're only 25.
Yes.
So it wasn't long that you were a teenager.
No,
but
it wasn't too long ago. No.
You're a teenager now. You're off the meds. You're on your own. I mean, you're kind of functioning junior high school.
Yeah.
What kind of teenager were you?
I'll say this. When I was kind of in middle school and around that age, 12, 13, 14 years old, middle school, transitioning into high school, I had a lot of changes happen in my life. I was moved from my hometown to a place where I didn't know anybody.
Wow.
And this happened halfway through my freshman year of high school. So I had to kind of leave all my friends and all the people that I'd known my whole life and meet all new people. And
that's so hard.
And it was tough, man. And it was tough, and it was like, I hate to use this word, but it was scary.
Yeah.
And I hate, that's one of the things a lot of times is like, I don't like to always admit, like, yeah, that really scared me, but it did. And I think at the time I just wanted to, going back to before, I just wanted to be accepted, and I wanted people to like me, and I didn't really care at the time what they were doing. I was willing to do whatever it was that they were doing to be accepted.
Yeah, because you're in the new land.
Yeah,
it's like, take me to your leader.
Exactly.
And you eat what they eat, and you do what they do, and yeah. I can relate to that because I moved from Dallas, where we lived, back to Mexico when I was going into junior high.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so kind of right around the same time, yeah.
But I wanted to move.
Yeah.
Because I was bullied and harassed in Dallas.
Okay.
And in Mexico, nobody bothered me, really.
Yeah.
So I was the reverse story.
That's kind of backward, yeah,
but still scary. Still scary.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it's like, especially at that age when you have such a drastic life change and environment change like that, it really, so for me what happened was I got really into like drugs, right? Because for me at the time, I mean, kind of started with weed, but then it was like more pills and alcohol and stuff like that. But I developed this identity for myself as like the go-to guy, like whatever you need, I can get it. And I'll go to whatever lengths I have to do to get it for you, because then I get invited to the party, and then I get to meet all the cool people, and like you just said, kind of take me to your leader. Like if I can be that guy's right hand man, I'll do whatever I got to do to get there.
Yeah.
And so that was my kind of foray into making friends for all the wrong reasons. And not really having any values or morals of, I didn't really care what you did or how you did it. If you liked me and you had other friends and you wanted me to be around you, that's cool.
Wow.
That's all I want.
And I'm trying to think of all the components that led there.
Mm-hmm.
like a new space, trying to fit in,
Mm-hmm.
young teenager, single kid.
Yeah.
Like there's really nothing to keep you at home.
Yeah.
Because all your friends are out. Like, and I mean this in the loving way, but you had the elements for the perfect storm.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I think that when I kind of entered into that space, it was very exciting for me because not only was I becoming this person that everybody knew that they could call and then, okay, we want to do something crazy tonight, let's call Alex. Or, you know what I mean? Like, let's take this adventure, let's go take some acid or whatever and get weird and do crazy stuff, like we can call Alex. And there was a lot of power that was involved in that, right? And that word power and that feeling of like, wow, you know, and I, as a teenager, I just ate that kind of stuff up, you know, and it was very appealing to me. And I was also, I can say this too, I went to school in a very affluent area. And so, you know, when money kind of became involved and I see these people living these lives that I always wanted to live, to have power over those people and to have them want to bring me into their lives and they pay me whatever they have to pay me to get it. There's this sense of control that I always wanted to have. Like I always wanted to have that control. My whole life. I was always looking for that control, and I was always looking for kind of that steady, like I want my life to be kind of based in this sense of whatever I want, like I can get it.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
what more do you want than to be in a grand, a better than society or neighborhood?
Yeah,
and you don't even have to go out looking for adventures. Adventures come to your door.
Yeah,
and not to bring this into it, but you know, young little white boy, probably good looking kid, like, hey. I'm here, and then unfortunately there's a separation from your parents. So, I'm sure you were with your mom. She probably has to work. You're like, you have all this extra time. Nothing worse than a teenager with extra time.
With idle time,
Oh my God! And then you got, who's that? Adventure! I'm coming.
Yep.
and I've got the goodies. Oh my God, dude! I would have loved to have been your friend when I was a teenager. I didn't do drugs till I was in my 20s, but I would have partied at that age. I understand from what you're saying. You understood the power that you held in your hands.
Yeah.
Did you understand the other side of the coin to all that? The consequences side?
No.
Did you even have an idea that there would be consequences to anything?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, I used to kind of joke with my friend, like especially when we started kind of getting into like harder drugs and like, you know, because there's this socially accepted circle of party drugs,
right,
and fun drugs,
right,
and then there's this not so socially acceptable circle of like, ooh,
even as a drug addict, I would still be like, I don't do that.
Yeah,
that's basic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and so I remember kind of getting maybe like 16 or 17. I was kind of starting to get into those drugs, the not so socially acceptable drugs, and I would joke, like my friends and I had this small group of friends that would do that stuff with me, and we would always kind of joke about like, man, if we get caught doing this, we're going to rehab, you know, and like we didn't even really know what it meant to go to rehab at that point in our lives. We just knew that this stuff was not cool. Right. And that our parents would freak out if they knew what was kind of going on.
Now, again, to put this in perspective to people, this is what, like 10 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, 10, yeah.
So we're
Like
saying
9 or
2008,
10.
2008?
Yeah.
Which is not long ago.
No.
Because
No.
your story and my story, and I'm not going to put out our story is such a classic tale that you can put that in any kind of generation.
Yeah.
And it happens. And I say that because for anybody listening, it's not old things. This is not old. It's happening now. Just parents don't know about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really interesting. Well, not interesting. It's sad. But nowadays you have drugs like heroin and methamphetamine, and they're in the high school.
Yeah.
Like, it's there now.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And that blew my mom's mind. Like, when I was the first time I got
I cut your story, but keep going.
Yeah. So kind of like where I'm going with this, and it's interesting for me to reflect on this time of my life and think about how I was feeling when I was that age and going through these things. And like I said, that's like that sense of power and that freedom, right? And like now that I look, because my values are so much different now.
Right.
And so when I reflect on those feelings, I almost feel like guilty and weird about being just so focused on only that. And so kind of where I'm going with this is that, so the first time that I got arrested, like actually put in handcuffs by the police, and I was 17 years old.
Wow.
And it was for possession of a controlled substance, which was heroin. And I remember my mom having to pick me up from the Linwood police station, which is because I got arrested in Compton. And I remember being in the back of the cop car and watching the cop on the phone with my mom, telling her that I just got arrested because I had heroin on me. And I remember what that felt to think of my mom hearing that for the first time.
Isn't that shitty?
Oh, God, it was terrible.
Isn't that the worst? Yeah.
I think at that point in my life, that was the lowest. Like, that's the lowest that I'd ever felt in my entire life. It's the worst that I had felt up to that point.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I guess it's one recurring addict to another recurring addict. It's the only time that these conversations make that kind of sense.
Yeah.
Is that I remember the first time that I got pulled over, and they didn't find the drugs in my car, but the cop knew. I mean, he knew, and they didn't charge me anything. But I remember just thinking, because my mom had given me birthday money. And I went out and got drugs with the birthday money. Yeah. And then I was pissed because the drugs were still in the car. They didn't find them. But I was in jail, and I was like, damn it. And that's what, I mean, I was sad that my mom's birthday money, and then there was this other split reaction, like, damn it, but I have to wait till I get out of here to do them.
Yeah. You had that guilt of like,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can totally relate to that. And I think one of the things that was like, one of the worst feelings that has been recurring in my life was that guilt of doing wrong towards my mom. And it goes the same with my dad too, but it was very more so towards my mom. And sorry, Dad. But it was, my mom always stuck up for me, and my mom was always my advocator and like my biggest fan and like my number one supporter. And so whenever I did something that was just really fucked up, like towards my mom, I had this like gut, like terrible feeling of like, man, that really...
Yeah, you just know that they're upgrading your travel to hell. Like, you just went from coach to first class, and you're like, I know it, man, I know. Yeah. Again, we have very parallel stories. I sobered up when my mom was already dealing with Alzheimer's, the beginning cases. So my mom never saw me get clean or sober.
Wow.
and that's always like every time I see her, like I don't know how, like she won't understand if I apologize, but I remember the first time I saw her after that, and I apologized, and she just had no clue what I was talking about. But I needed to get it out of my system.
Yeah.
But I still feel guilty.
Yeah.
Like that she
it's
never,
like heavy on your heart.
as an adult, she never saw me clean and sober, and I was like, oh man. And every time she gave me money, I was like, oh thanks, Mom. I'll put it in gas.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So can I ask you how many times you had encounters with the police before anything changed?
Yeah. It was probably 6 or 7 arrests before really anything changed. You know, that was actually my only possession charge for drugs. Like somehow I got lucky enough to not be arrested for that again. But I had all kinds of other legal consequences from my using and from just being involved with certain people because of my using. I have a couple assault and battery charges from being very, very intoxicated at bars.
Wow.
And spent a couple of nights like in the drunk tank from that. I have some like grand theft charges, all related to my using, and either I got too fucked up and I fought somebody and I ended up in jail, or I didn't have enough money to get what I needed to get, so I go steal and then I end up in jail.
And your mom knew about, or your parents knew about all these?
Yeah.
Or if not,
I still owe them money for the lawyers.
I know where he works. I will keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
Do you believe that it all started it started to create this wheel? Like you do stuff, you feel guilty, you go out and do more stuff to relieve the guilt, but then you get messed up and start all over again, and then somewhere in there your parents get caught up, and I'm sure family or friends get caught up in it too.
Yes. Yeah, well, I can say that the last probably 6 or 7 years, maybe more of my life have been this kind of revolving door of, like you said, like I mess up and there's 2 outcomes. There's either I ask for help, which is very rare. That's only happened really recently where I've gone that route, or I go deeper into the depression and the guilt, and I use more, and then I have more consequences. And if it goes the other way, where I ask for help, up until recently, it hasn't really been a sincere asking for help. It's more of just like, wow, I don't have any other options right now, so I guess I'll make it look like I want to change.
Yeah, because we're not asking help to fix us. We're asking for help to fix the situation.
Yeah.
Which is basically just putting a Band-Aid on a breaking down dam. Like that's just covered for now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I owe this much money, pay it.
Yeah.
But we never take care of what's going on inside of us. What was going inside of you?
I think a lot of it had to do with, I didn't. So let's just go back for just a second here. Sure. One of the things that I kind of had touched on just a little bit was my guilt for the way that I had felt in my teenage years about like all the kind of power stuff and the using people stuff and the like doing everything and anything to get what I wanted. And so I think towards the tail end of that, I started realizing that I had no like morals and values except for like, I don't want to murder anybody, or like I would never rape somebody. But like, other than that, there was like nothing. There was no line that I wouldn't cross. Yeah. And I started feeling really guilty about that. And I started feeling like they say, just constitutionally incapable of being honest.
Yes.
And I started feeling that very heavily, and I started feeling that I was like thinking that I was like a sociopath, and that I didn't really care about anybody but myself. And I think the guilt from feeling that way is obviously, to me now, having guilt about that kind of means that I'm not a sociopath.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
Just a little bit. But at the time, I didn't realize that, and so I used that as an excuse to continue to self-medicate because I didn't want to feel that way. And I just really didn't like myself for a long time. I had a really low self-worth. I felt like I, for lack of a better term, like hoard myself out to anybody who would take me. Yeah. Like anybody who wants to be part of my bullshit, like, yes, please come into my life. Yeah. Because I have no genuine way of gaining respect. Does that make sense?
No, totally. Yeah. I'm listening. I'm going, like, are we the same person in different bodies? Like, what's going on here? All right. Because there's this little bit, like, we lose our spirit and our soul, but obviously we don't ever really lose it, but we kind of put it up in this, like, we put it in the safety box where it won't get dirty because we know we're going to need it again eventually. Yeah. But without spirit and soul, our body and our minds they're able to do a lot. Yeah. I tell people nowadays when I do card readings for people, they're like, can you do a reading for me for $20? I'm like, if you knew the things I've done for $20. This is the best thing I've ever done for $20. At least I'm giving you something in return that you can use. So many of
something that's useful to you.
Yeah, many of back seats have seen $20 interchange.
Yes.
For nothing good came out of it. Yeah. But how does once you get your... So let's clarify. You're clean and sober now.
Yes.
Yeah. And can I ask how long?
Just over 6 months.
That's pretty awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
That first year is it's where it's like going back to your childhood home and undusting everything. And taking the sheets off everything. And so let me go in that direction. As you're in your first 6 months of sobriety and recovery, what are you finding that you thought you lost?
Well, so it's interesting because this isn't my first.
That's not your worst rodeo?
This is not my first time in recovery.
Okay.
And so just to, like, a little bit of history here, my first time ever understanding, like, full abstinence / recovery, like no drugs at all, and like we're doing 12-step meetings and this is what it's like, was about 6 years ago. And I went into it with a super, like, open mind because at that point in my life I had lost everything that I had ever had. And my mom had sort of said to me, I'm sick and tired of being codependent and, like, supporting you with everything and helping you kill yourself. So you need to leave my home. You need to not ask me for money anymore because I'm not going to give it to you. And you can call me if you need someone to talk to, but other than that, like, we're done with all of this stuff.
So you knew what was happening.
Yeah.
Did you comprehend what was happening?
As far as, like, the separation?
Yeah, what you really meant.
Not at the time, no.
Because
No.
I had friends who were like, if you're going to keep doing drugs, we can't hang out with you.
Yeah.
Like, we can't be part of your circle. We can't be there for... And I understood that. Like, I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
But then, the moment you call and nobody answers, or you show up at a party and your friends don't talk to you, then I really comprehended what that meant. Like, holy shit, you're really not going to come near me.
Yeah.
So that's why I ask people, like, did you really comprehend what she meant when she was saying it?
Not at first. No, not at first. It took for me, so I got into recovery that time. I stayed clean for maybe like a few months, and then I didn't really do a whole lot of work on myself, and so I ended up using again, and I tried to pull her back into this like cycle of codependency that's been going on my entire life, and she said no, and she said, I'm not giving you any money, you cannot come to my home, please just go back to treatment, like that's it. And I think anybody who understands what codependency really means and who's been in a codependent relationship, whether it's with your family or with an intimate partner or whoever, and maybe it's even like a childhood friend that you've known your whole life and you have this codependent relationship with them. But if you understand what that means, when that bond is broken, it's a really terrible feeling, and it's at first, especially if you're the one who's being told, I can't do this anymore with you. Like if you're the one who's setting the boundary, it's awesome. It's super empowering. It makes you feel great to say, I'm not going to be like this anymore. But if you're the one, but if you're the one who's being told that, it's like it's baffling the first time it happens, right? Because you've almost been torn apart from this lifeline that you've had for however long. Like for me, it was my entire life, and it's being ripped away. And now, like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, where's my identity? Because I got a lot of my validation, my everything from that codependent relationship.
Yeah.
And so when that was torn away from me, it was very hard to deal with. And it was like, it had never happened to me at that point, until that point in my life.
So what happens?
What happened was I had to accept that I could no longer manipulate that person. Like I could no longer manipulate her for my personal gain, and that I either had to find somebody else to manipulate, or I had to just like change and get better, and maybe like give this recovery thing a shot.
Now, most people don't realize that the easiest thing is to try and change.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of energy to teach somebody or convince somebody that they're not being manipulated.
Yeah.
To convince this new group of people or this new person that you're the victim here.
Mm-hmm. And please help me, because I need it.
Yes.
And you need to help me, because if you don't, you'll feel terrible.
And I'm drinking and doing drugs because I'm in pain. Yeah. And how dare you judge me at this moment of pain? Yeah. Oh yeah, no. It's an artistry. It's artistry in motion. And
yes.
If you're listening to this or watching and you're going, that's bullshit. You've never seen a true addict at work. Because yes, half the boyfriends that I had weren't because you just don't understand everything that I've been through.
Yep.
You don't get it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how many more times did you have to fall before you finally realized that?
What, that I needed to really change my life?
Yeah.
It was a few more, I think. This was probably, when this happened was probably, I think it was like 2012. I went back into treatment, and then there was like a couple like back and forth, like, do I really want to do this? And I kind of bounced around for a little bit, and then in the beginning of 2013, I had maybe like 6 or 7 months clean at that point, and I once again convinced myself that it would be like okay to just like go use heroin for like a weekend. Like,
what's the damage?
Yeah,
What's it gonna hurt?
it's not gonna be that big of a deal. Like, I got a buddy in town. Like, let's just go. And within a 24-hour period, I overdosed.
Wow.
Almost died. I got robbed for everything that I had, like my cell phone, my wallet, all my money. Almost my vehicle. I almost lost my vehicle. And this was all within like 24 hours.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It doesn't sound like an unable to answer question, but why? Why keep going back?
I don't think there's ever a legitimate reason why to go back. Like, I've heard so many people that when they relapse, they'll, then somebody asks them, what happened? And I've never, ever, ever once heard a legitimate excuse for going back and using again. And I think the only reason that happens is because you've either just flat out said, I'm sick of being sober, right? Like, and you just go get high again because you just want to get high. Like, some people just do it because they just want to.
Right.
Like, why give some bullshit excuse of like, oh, like my dog like died or something, and
no, I'm not laughing at dogs
I
dying.
love dogs.
Yeah, I'm not laughing at dogs dying. I'm laughing because I've heard that people say
Yeah, and like I love like life is a precious thing. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's a terrible thing if your dog dies, but like that doesn't mean that you have to go get loaded over it. And I think the only reason that anybody goes back is that they either never did any work on themselves in the first place when they got into recovery, or they stopped and they got like stagnant and they got comfortable with being who they were at that exact moment. And I personally, I feel like when I stopped growing and when I stopped being teachable and willing to learn, I'm like screwed.
Okay, so we're at the point now in my show where we usually send out some words of wisdom to the listeners.
Yeah.
So what words of wisdom would you share with people watching or listening?
That's a great question. So one thing that I've like learned in the last few years is that there's always someone that is less fortunate than me, and there's always somebody that I can help. And a lot of times in recovery, you'll hear people say like, in order to recover, like you have to help others, right? And they say that like, oh, it's a selfish thing because you're helping people to help yourself. And I think for me, it's not just so much about like, oh, I need to reach my hand out to somebody else. It's just getting myself in the mode of like, if I'm willing to take time out of my day to not think about myself for like 2 seconds, that's huge growth for me.
Wow.
Because I'm always constantly concerned about what's going to happen with me, or like where my next like $1,000 is going to come from, or like, just and all that stuff is like important for me to understand. Like it's important for me to like budget my money and like understand like how I'm going to survive as an adult. But it's even more important for me to understand that there's so many people in my life that either need help and are too like like scared to ask for it. And if I can go out of my way to like help somebody else, that gives me the opportunity to not be so concerned about myself. And when I'm less concerned about myself and thinking about myself all the time, I'm like genuinely like a happier person. It's
interesting that it all comes back to other people and helping other people.
Yeah.
I get this feeling that it's always been about the projection that you have on other people.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like from the beginning of your story, it's always been about like what's on the other side. Like who's looking at me and what are they thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Are you still concerned about what people think about you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, you know. But it's different. Like, it's different now. It's like I tend to feel like there's no like bad motives behind it. Like for me, like I'm concerned about what people think about me in the way that I'm concerned about just being a good person, and the way that I'm concerned about being a good employee and a good son and a good friend. And it's not so much about where like if somebody doesn't like me, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so what? Like I have enough self-worth today to understand that like I'm okay with who I am and where I'm at in my level of growth. And I'm also at the point where I can understand that not everybody's gonna like me, and I'm not gonna like everybody, and it would be selfish for me to want everybody to like me.
You like me, I may not like you, but you have to like me.
But you have to like me, yeah, exactly. So in that sense, like, no, I don't care if somebody doesn't like me, because that's fine. Like, you know, I don't think I'm this person that like everyone has to like that's okay, you know, and but I am concerned about what other people think, in the sense that I just want to be the best that I can be, like, towards the people that are in my circle, that I respect, that I want to be in my life.
Yeah, it's
like,
the character that we leave, the image of the character that we are.
Yeah.
Not what you think of me. Yeah.
Yeah,
I get it.
exactly.
I hope that makes sense to people listening. May I ask how low you fell this last time before you?
I mean,
You don't have to go into specifics.
Yeah, you know, it was pretty rough. One thing that I didn't mention was that after I had relapsed and all that stuff happened within that 24-hour period, I ended up getting clean right after that again, and was clean for over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And some stuff happened, and then I chose to use again after that. And I like to say that I chose to use, because that's exactly what happened. Like, nobody forced me to. Like, there was no circumstance that happened in my life that made it inevitable for me to use. Like, I didn't have to. Like, I chose to do it. And so ever since then, it's been really tough for me to put together any time at all, because one, I was kind of embarrassed to come back, and kind of like really only people who are in the recovery community can really understand what that means. Right. But you know, let me say this, as far as like how low I got before I came back this time. I just recently got out of a relationship, and I was with this woman for 3.5 years. Wow. And towards the end of my using this last time, my entire life revolved around just me being in a room with her, and like us hating each other, but using each other to continue to use.
Oh, because it's so beautiful when you have somebody that you hate and they hate you, but you stay in the relationship. Yeah. Now you have somebody to blame. Yeah. Man, it's off of me. Yeah. It's all about, it's your fault. Mm-hmm. Oh, man, those. Yeah, thank you to all those boyfriends that I blamed for that one extra shot of tequila, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that got really, really dark and terrible for me towards the end of that. And like, I still love her, and I still like really, really wish and hope the best for her. But it was just for the last 1.5 years, it was a really, really it was a really toxic relationship. Yeah. And we tried to kind of do this recovery thing together this time around, and unfortunately, she struggled a little bit more than I did staying clean, and the relationship just had to end for both of us to go anywhere.
Are you doing anything different this time?
This time around, in recovery, I'm choosing to work on myself as much as I possibly can on a daily basis. One of the biggest mistakes that I've had in recovery in the past is, there tends to be this thing where you get off the drugs and you feel better, and everything physically feels so much better, and you feel good, and then you feel powerful, and you're like, I can do anything, and you get into a super you get a great job and you work all the time, or you get into a relationship and you get fully consumed with that, and then you forget that you're sick still, and you don't do any work on yourself, and then the next thing you know, you're working 80 hours a week, or you spend all of your time with whoever it is you're in a relationship with, and then something bad happens, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I think maybe I'm gonna go use again, because nothing's changed, because you realize nothing has changed, and maybe you don't even realize that, but everybody else does.
Right.
And everybody else knows, he's screwed because he didn't do any freaking work,
There's that look in his eye.
Yeah.
Yep. And, I've been very fortunate. I went through rehab in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Best summer of my life. To this day, it's my best. I consider it summer camp.
Yeah.
I was there for 3 months, and I cried the day that I had to leave. 10 years. It'll be 11 years this summer.
Wow.
So I'm very blessed and very happy. So I commend you. I know firsthand, especially when you're so used to having power, and to come back with the tail between your legs. Mm-hmm. It's humbling, but to the 10th dimension.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh man, it's like doing the walk of shame, and all your family is watching you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So good for you, man. I really hope that, because you seem like a really cool guy, and I'd love to just to get to know you better.
Yeah.
Hold on, don't